Hello and welcome back, guys. So there has been a lot of discussion about MCC, so Millennium Challenge Compact. So it's between USA and Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal. So let's have a look at it. So what's the agreement about, and then what are its provisions? So let's have a look at it, and then we'll have a clear picture. So I'll just zoom in a bit. So it's a 78-page report, and then I'll keep a link in the description below as well so that you can even read it from there. Okay, so in the first phase it says Challenge Compact between the United States of America acting through the Millennium Challenge Corporation. So it is acting through Millennium Challenge Corporation and Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal acting through Ministry of Finance. Okay, so Nepal government through Ministry of Finance, and then this one is United States acting through Millennium Challenge Corporation. Okay, so there's the table of contents. So let's look at goals and objectives first of all. So Millennium Challenge Compact. The Millennium Challenge Compact, this compact, or hereafter they have said it's a compact, okay, is between United States of America acting through Millennium Challenge Corporation, a United States government corporation, MCC, and the Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal acting through its Ministry of Finance, the government, individually, a party, and collectively, the parties. Okay, capitalized terms used in this compact will have the meaning provided in Annex 6. So अनुसूची 6 भने जस्तै similar to that. And then recognizing that the parties are committed to the shared goals of promoting economic growth and elevation of poverty in Nepal, and that MCC assistance under this compact supports Nepal's demonstrated commitment to strengthening good governance, economic freedom, and investments in people. Recalling the government consulted with private sector and the civil society of Nepal to determine the priorities for the use of MCC assistance, and developed and submitted to MCC a proposal for such assistance to achieve lasting economic growth and poverty elevation. So the government consulted with private sectors and civil society of Nepal, and then determined priorities based upon that, and then submitted a proposal to MCC. Recognizing that MCC wishes to help Nepal implement the program described herein to achieve the goals and objectives described herein, the program, the parties hereby agree as follows. So Article 1, goals and objectives. So Section 1.1. So compact goal. The goal of this compact is to reduce poverty through economic growth in Nepal. Compact goal, as you can see, that's the compact goal. MCC's assistance will provide a manner that strengthens good governance, economic freedom, and investments in the people of Nepal. Okay, so what that will do strengthens good governance, economic freedom, and investments in people of Nepal. Okay, so section 1.2, project objectives. The program consists of the project described in Annex 1, each a project and collectively as projects. So the objective of each of the projects or project objectives is to increase electricity consumption by facilitating power trade and by improving the availability and reliability of electricity supply in Nepal's electricity grid, and by facilitating power trade. Okay, so it's between two countries as well, or it will help to increase the power as well, power trade between country. Okay, so maintain road quality across strategic road network. So these are the two goals that this compact has set out. Okay, so another thing that we need to remember is MCC is acting. So United States of government is acting through MCC. Nepal government is acting through Ministry of Finance. Okay. So Article 2, funding and resource. So Section 2.1. So program funding. Upon entry into force of this compact in accordance with Section 7.3. So there is a section in 7.3 which I've highlighted few conditions. We'll have a look at that as well. MCC will grant to the government under the terms of this compact an amount to not to exceed 459,500,000 United States dollar. Okay, so in Nepalese you could say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, so it's 45 crore dollars. Okay, so yeah, for the use by the government to implement the program, the allocation of the program funding is generally described in Annex 2, which is basically the improvement of electricity transmission and improving the strategic or maintaining the strategic road network. Okay, let's see, does it say any road? No, it does not. It says strategic road network. So Section 2.2 compact CDF. Upon signing of this compact, MCC will grant to the government under the terms of this compact and in addition to the program funding described in Section 2.1 an amount not to exceed 40,500,000 United States dollars. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 4 crore. So how much will be the total? Let's calculate the total as well. So 459,500,000 plus 40500 1 2 3. So yeah, exactly 50 crore. Okay, so that would be in Nepalese rupees. Let's assume being 100 digit 1 2 3 4 5 6. So into 100. So 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So that would be 5 kharba. Yep. Okay, and then after that under section, so for 40,500,000, and then under section 609Z of the Millennium Challenge Act of 2003 as amended, MCA Act, for the use by the government to facilitate implementation of this compact, including for the following purposes. So financial management, procurement activities, administrative activities, including startup costs such as staff salaries and administrative support expenses such as rent, computers, other information technology or capital equipment, monitoring and evaluation activities, feasibility design and other preparatory studies, activities, and other activities to facilitate compact implementation as required by MCC. Okay, to facilitate compact implementation as approved by MCC. Okay, the allocation of compact CDF is generally described in section 2. In accordance with section 7.5, this section 2.2 and other provisions of the compact applicable to compact CDF will be effective for the purpose of compact CDF only as of the date this compact is signed by MCC and the government. Okay. When it is signed, this will be effective. Each distribution of compact CDF is subject to satisfaction of conditions precedent to such distribution, to such disbursement as set forth in Annex 4. So the criteria that they have mentioned in Annex 4 should be fulfilled. So what sort of criteria have they basically mentioned is that should not be used for political or like military funding or that sort of things that they have mentioned, and then it's basically the conditions that these funds should not be utilized for something else rather than just for the purpose that it has been allocated to. Okay, so if MCC determines that the full amount of compact CDF available under section 2.2a exceeds the amount that reasonably can be utilized for the purposes set forth in section 2.2a by MCC by written notice to the government, may withdraw the excess amount, thereby reducing the amount of the compact CDF available under section 2.2a. Such excess compact CDF amount, in such event, the amount of compact CDF granted to government under section 2.2a will reduce the excess compact CDF amount, and the MCC will have no further obligation with respect to such excess compact CDF amount. Okay. So if it exceeds the reasonable amount that it can be utilized for, then it can withdraw it. So that's the provision. MCC, at its option, by written notice to government, may elect to grant to the government an amount equal to all or a portion of such excess compact CDF amount as an increase in program funding, and such additional program funding will subject to terms and conditions of this compact applicable to program funding. So it may also elect to fund the excess compact CDF amount. Okay. So section 2.3 MCC funding, program funding and compact CDF are collectively referred to in this compact as MCC funding, and includes any refunds or reimbursements of program funding or compact CDF paid by the government in accordance with this compact. Okay. So disbursement. So in accordance with this compact and program implementation, MCC will disperse MCC funding for expenditures incurred in furtherance of the program, each instance as disbursement, subject to the satisfaction of all applicable precedent. Okay, so MCC will make the proceeds of disbursement available to government either by deposit to one or more bank accounts established by MCC and acceptable to MCC, established by government and acceptable to MCC, that is permitted accounts, or by direct payment to provider of goods, works, or services for the implementation of program. MCC funding may be expended only for program expenditures. So interest, the government will pay or transfer to MCC in accordance with program implementation agreement any interest or other earnings that occur on MCC funding prior to such funding being used for a program purpose. Okay, government will transfer. If the money is staying idle, the interest amount will be transferred, but if it is being used, no need to do anything about it. And then section 2.6 government resources budget, the government will provide all funds and other resources and will take all actions that are necessary to carry out government's responsibilities under this compact. In addition, the government will make a contribution towards meeting the program objectives of this compact. which is government contribution. Annex 2 describes the government contribution in more detail. The government will use its best efforts to ensure that all MCC funding it receives or is projected to receive in each of its fiscal years is fully accounted for in its annual budget for the duration of the program. Okay, so it should be mentioned in the budget as well. The government will not reduce the normal or expected resource that it would otherwise receive or budget from sources other than MCC activities for the other than MCC for the activities contemplated under this compact and the program. So just because this funding is coming and then this is being channeled for development works does not mean that the revenue which has been generated from the sources such as taxes or whatever else cannot be or the revenue which has been generated should be allocated for or if this compact would not have been signed. Okay, so it should also be alongside the compact as well. So government cannot withdraw any resources or budgets from sources other than MCCs for activities contemplated under this compact. Okay, unless the government discloses otherwise to MCC in writing, MCC funding will be in addition to the resources that the government would otherwise receive or budget for the activities contemplated under this compact and the program. Okay, so limitations on the use of MCC funding. The government will ensure that MCC funding is not used for any purpose that would violate United States laws or policy as specified in this compact as further notice to the government in writing, including but not limited to the following purposes. Okay, is not used for purposes that would violate United States laws or policies as specified in this compact, or as further notified to the government, or as further notified to the government in writing, including but not limited to following purposes: for assistance to or training of the military, policia, militia, national guard, or other quasi-military organizations or unit, for any activity that is likely to cause a substantial loss of United States jobs or any substantial displacements of United States production. Okay, so to undertake, fund, or otherwise support any activity that is likely to cause a significant environmental, health, or safety hazard as further described in MCC environmental guidelines and any guidance documents issued in connection with such guidelines, collectively MCC environmental guidelines, or to pay for the performance of abortions as a method of family planning, to motivate or coerce any person to practice abortions, to pay for the performance of involuntary sterilization as a method of family planning, or to coerce or provide any financial incentive to any person to undergo sterilizations, or to pay any biomedical research which relates in whole or in part to the methods of or the performance of abortions or involuntary sterilization as a means of family planning. Okay, so that could also elevate poverty. They might give that sort of reasoning, but it should not be used for these following purposes. Okay, so basically environmental issues, environmental guidelines should be followed, and if it does any significant environmental hazards or environmental destruction, then it should not be used for that. So any substantial loss of US jobs or any substantial displacement of United States production, and then for assistance or training of police, military, or any other organization, and then to pay for abortions, voluntary or involuntary. So in section 22.8, taxes, unless the parties specifically agree otherwise in writing, the government will ensure that all MCC funding is free from the payment or imposition of any existing or future taxes, duties, levies, contributions, or other similar charges, but not fees or charges for services that are generally applicable in Nepal, are reasonable in amount and imposed on a non-discriminatory basis. Taxes of or in Nepal, including any taxes imposed by national, federal, state, local, or any governmental or taxing authority of or in Nepal specifically, and without limiting the generality of the foregoing, MCC funding will be free from the payment of any tariffs, custom duties, import taxes, export taxes, and other similar charges on any goods or work or services introduced into Nepal in connection with the program. Value added tax, sales tax, excise duties, property transfer tax, and other similar charges on any transactions involving goods, works, or services in connection with the program. Taxes and other similar charges on ownership, possession, or use of property in connection with the program, and taxes and other similar charges on income, profits, or gross receipts attributable to work performed in connection with the program, and related social security taxes and other similar charges on all natural or legal person performing work in connection with program, except natural person who are citizens or permanent residents of Nepal. So basically, except those who are working with that for the entity itself, for MCC's project which has created any entity, it's free for them, but the other entity, it is taxable for them. Okay, legal persons formed under the laws of government, but excluding MCA Nepal and any other entity formed for the purpose of implementing government's obligation hereunder. Okay, so those who are working for that particular organization, MCA Nepal, should pay taxes, but not MCA Nepal. That's what it means. So the mechanisms that the government will use to implement the tax exemptions required by Section 2.8 for the certain principal taxes are set forth in Annex 7. So, and such mechanisms may include exemptions from the payment of taxes that have been granted in accordance with applicable law, a refund or reimbursement of taxes by the government to MCA Nepal or the taxpayer, or payment by the government to MCA Nepal or MCC for the benefits of the program of an agreed amount representing any collectible taxes on the items described in section 2.8a. Okay, so all these taxes they are not paying, any sort of taxes they are not paying. So if a tax has been paid contrary to the requirement of section 2.a annex 6, the government will refund promptly to MCC or to any other party as designated by MCC the amount of such taxes in United States dollars or currency of Nepal within 30 days, or such other period may be agreed in writing by parties after the government is notified in writing, whether by MCC or MCA Nepal, that such taxes has been paid. Failure to refund such amount within the specified time will result in interest occurring on unpaid amount in accordance with section 5.4. So if a taxes has been paid, then it should be, if it is not mm, given back or refunded within mentioned time, which is 30 days, that's what it says. So it's not paid, then an interest will be occurred. No MCC funding proceeds thereof or program assets may be applied by government in satisfaction of these obligations under section 2.8c. Okay, Okay. So no MCC funding which has been designated or program assets that have been allocated to government to satisfy the obligation for 2.8C for the interest purposes. You can't use that for paying off your interest. Okay. In case of implementation, Section 3.1 Program Implementation Agreement, the parties will enter into an agreement providing further details on the implementation arrangements, fiscal accountability and disbursement, use of MCC funding, among other matters. The Program Implementation Agreement or PIA, the government will implement the program in accordance with this compact, the PIA, any other supplemental agreement and any implementation letter. Okay, the parties will enter into agreement providing further detail on implementation agreements. So section 3.2 government responsibilities. The government has the principal responsibility for overseeing and managing the implementation of the program. With the prior written consent of MCC, the government will designate an entity to be established through a formation order issued by Council of Ministers of Nepal as the accountable entity to implement the program and to exercise and perform government's rights and obligations to oversee, manage and implement the program, including without limitation, managing the implementation of projects and their activities, allocating resources and managing procurements. Such entity will be referred to herein as MCA Nepal and will have authority to act on behalf of government with regard to all program activities. The government hereby also designates MCA Nepal to exercise and perform government's rights and responsibilities to oversee, manage and implement the activities defined in the amended and restated initial engagement technical assistance grant agreement dated July 20, 2016. The designation contemplated by this section 3.2b will not relieve the government of any obligations or responsibilities hereunder or under any related agreements for which the government remains fully responsible. MCC hereby acknowledges and consents to and the designation in this section 3.2b. So separate entity will be formed and then the government will not be relieved of any obligations or responsibilities hereunder or under any related or other agreements. The government will ensure that any program assets or services funded in part directly or indirectly by MCC funding are used solely in furtherance of this compact and the program unless MCC agrees otherwise in writing. Okay, so it should only be used for this compact. The government will take necessary or appropriate steps to achieve the project objectives during the compact term, including without limiting section 2.6a funding all the costs that exceeds MCC funding and are required to carry out the terms hereof and achieve such objectives unless MCC agrees otherwise in writing. So they may agree to pay the extra cost or the government should take necessary steps for, or they should actually fund themselves the excess amount. That's what it says. The government will ensure that the program is implemented and then the government carries out its obligations hereunder with due care, efficiency and diligence in conformity with sound technical, financial and management practices and in conformity with the pact, the program implementation agreement, each other supplemental agreements and the program guidelines. The government grants to MCC a perpetual irrevocable, which is it can't be mm, revoked, royalty free, worldwide, fully paid, assignable right and license to practice or have practiced on its behalf, including the right to produce, reproduce, publish, repurpose, use, store, modify, or make available any portions of intellectual property as MCC sees fit in any medium, now known or hereafter developed for any purpose whatsoever. Okay. So where did that thing go? Okay. So policy performance, section 3.3. In addition to undertaking the specific policy, legal and regulatory reform commitments identified in Annex 1, if any, the government will seek to maintain and to improve its level of performance under the policy criteria identified in section 607 of the MCA Act and the selection criteria and methodology used by MCC. Okay, so the government will seek to maintain and to improve its level of performance under the policy criteria identified in section 607 of MCA Act itself. So commitments identified in Annex 1, we'll have a look at that as well, should be followed. Accuracy of information. The government assures MCC that as of the date this compact is signed by the government, the information provided to MCC by or on behalf of government in course of reaching agreement with MCC on this compact is true, correct and complete in all material respect. Implementation letters. From time to time, MCC may advise government in writing on any matters relating to compact, MCC funding or implementation of the program. The government will use such advice to in implementing the program. The parties also issue jointly agreed upon implementation letters to confirm and record their mutual understandings on aspects related to implementation of this compact, the PIA or other related agreements. So section 3.6, procurement and grants. The government will ensure that procurements of goods, works and services by the government or any other providers to implement the program will be in accordance with MCC's program procurement guidelines. The program procurement guidelines includes the following requirements among others, which is number one, open, fair, competitive procedures must be used in transparent manner to solicit, award, administer contracts and to procure goods, works and services. So it should be open, fair and competitive, the bidding process. And then the solicitation of goods and services must be based upon clear and accurate descriptions of goods, works and services to be acquired. So they should be clear and accurate descriptions of goods, works or services to be acquired. Contracts must be awarded to qualified contractors that have capability and willingness to perform the contracts in accordance with their terms on a cost-effective and timely basis. And no more than a commercial reasonable price as determined, for example, by comparison of price quotations and market prices will be paid to procure goods and services, okay, at a reasonable price. So B number, unless MCC otherwise consents in writing, the government will ensure that any grant issued in furtherance of the program is awarded, implemented, managed pursuant to open, fair, competitive procedures administered in a transparent manner applicable to MCC. In furtherance of this requirement and prior to the issuance of any grant, the government and the MCC will agree upon written procedures to govern the identification of potential grant recipients. So let's read it again. In furtherance of this agreement and prior to the issuance of any grant, okay? So in furtherance of this requirement or for prior to giving out the grant, the government and MCC will agree upon written procedures to govern the identification of potential grant recipients, including without limitation appropriate eligibility and selection criteria, award procedures. Such grants proceeds will be posted on MCA Nepal websites. Okay, so before giving out any grant, for furtherance of this requirement, the government and MCC might agree upon written procedures on how to on identification of potential grant recipient who might be receiving it, and then what could be the selection criteria and what could be the award procedures. Those could be mentioned as well. And then section 3.7, records accounting covered procedures access. So government books and records, the government will maintain and use its best effort to ensure that government books and records, the government will maintain and will use its best effort to ensure that all covered providers maintain accounting books, records, documentation, and other evidence relating to program adequate to show to MCC's satisfaction the use of all MCC's funding and the implementation and results of the program. In addition, the government will furnish or cause to be furnished to MCC upon its request originals or copies of such compact records accounting. The government will maintain and use its best effort to ensure that all covered providers maintain compact records in accordance with generally accepted accounting principle prevailing in United States or at the government's option and with MCC's prior written approval. Other accounting principles such as those prescribed by IASB or then prevailing in Nepal. Okay. The compact records must be maintained for at least 5 years after the end of compact terms or for such longer period, if any, required to resolve any litigation, claims or audit findings or any applicable legal requirements. So access upon MCC's request, the government at all reasonable times will permit or cause to be permitted authorized representatives of MCC, the Inspector General of MCC, the United States Government Accountability Office, any auditor responsible for an audit contemplated herein or otherwise conducted in furtherance of this compact, and any agents or representatives engaged by